You ever notice how betrayal doesn't announce itself? There's no trumpet, no smoke, no dramatic zoom in like in the movies. Sometimes, it arrives wearing gym clothes and holding a green smoothie. It was a Sunday. The kind of Sunday made for pancakes and lazy kisses, not revelations. I was on the porch, fixing a loose screw on the porch swing she'd been nagging about for months. My wife, Lila, stepped outside and said, "We need to talk," in a voice that made me straighten up before she even finished the sentence. "Sure," I said, brushing sawdust off my jeans. She didn't sit down. Didn't even look at the swing. "I think we need space," she said. Just like that. Like she was canceling a magazine subscription. My first thought wasn't panic. It was logistics. Who gets the dog? Do I have to sleep on Kyle's pull-out couch again? I squinted at her. Space from what exactly? Each other or my cooking? She blinked like I hadn't said anything. It's not just that. I've reconnected with someone. That's the phrase she used. Reconnected. Like an old Facebook friend. Like someone she once lent a textbook to in sophomore year and just happened to bump into, then decided to ruin a marriage over. I felt my throat tighten, but kept my voice steady. Is this the part where I guess who? She hesitated. That told me everything. Darren, she said quietly. Darren? I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I needed to put the sound of something in the air before I crumpled into it. Darren? Your trainer, Darren? She winced. It wasn't planned. It's leg day, not life ruin day, Lila. Don't make this harder than it is, she said, arms crossed like I was the one being unreasonable. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. I nodded slowly. Right. Like a parking ticket. The swing creaked behind me in the breeze, and I thought about how much time I'd spent making that porch perfect for her evening tea. She used to say it was her thinking spot. Guess Darren gave her something better to think about. She stood there, waiting for me to explode, maybe to beg. But I didn't. Instead, I said, okay. Her face broke just a bit. Okay. I'm not gonna beg you to love me, I said. That's not a skill I ever learned. She blinked. That, right there, was the first real surprise of the day for her, not me. Where will you go? She asked. I looked her dead in the eye. Somewhere with better taste and betrayal. Then I went inside and packed. Took the essentials, my passport, my dignity, and the old Polaroid of us on the Ferris wheel from our first date, because even when you lose the war, you get to keep the memories that made you brave enough to enter it. She stood at the doorway as I left, half expecting me to turn around. I didn't. I knew then this wasn't the end of something. It was the start of something else. Something colder. Smarter. Something she wouldn't see coming. I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town. One of those places with vending machines older than the Wi-Fi router and carpet that smelled like 1993. The receptionist gave me a room key without asking questions, which was exactly what I needed. No questions, no small talk, just space to plan my next move. My plan? Not revenge. Not yet. First, I needed facts. Truth. Unfiltered, unedited, no more. I didn't mean for it to happen monologues. Because if there's one thing heartbreak teaches you, it's that people rarely confess the whole story. They just give you enough to stop asking questions. I started simple. Darren had a public Instagram. Of course he did. Shirtless selfies. Flexing with protein powder. Caption quotes like, "Pain is temporary, pride is forever." I scrolled until I hit a post from 3 weeks ago, a story reposted from Lila's account. A smoothie, 2 straws, and a heart emoji. I never got a heart emoji. I got, "Can you pick up almond milk?" At the bottom, geotagged, Boulder Canyon Wellness Retreat. That's where she said she'd gone last weekend. Alone. Interesting, I muttered to myself, and not in a curious way. In the same tone you'd use when you realize the milk's gone bad, but you've already taken a sip. Back at the motel, I dug through my backpack and pulled out the old Chromebook I'd used in college. Took 10 minutes to boot, but it still ran incognito mode just fine. I started connecting dots. Darren was tagged in several photos by mutual friends, gym people, mostly. One in particular caught my eye. A girl named Lexi. Blonde, heavy contour, more filters than an HVAC unit. She posted a group photo from the retreat. Lila was in it, standing next to Darren. Matching jackets. His hand on her waist like it belonged there. So much for, it wasn't planned. I stared at the screen for a long time. My hand didn't shake. My breathing stayed even. But something inside shifted. Not shattered, no. Just shifted. Like a glacier cracking under pressure. Quiet, slow, inevitable. I clicked save. Then, without even knowing why, I opened a new document and typed 2 words at the top. Operation Clean Cut. Below it, I started listing names, places, passwords I still remembered, her email logins, the Netflix account she never bothered to change. Little things, digital threads I could start pulling until her curated life unraveled. I didn't feel angry. I felt focused. At 3:27 a.m., I made a pot of coffee on the ancient machine in the motel kitchenette. It tasted like dirt and regret, but it kept me upright. I sat in the scratchy armchair and watched the sunrise through a smudged window, the orange glow stretching across the parking lot like a crime scene tape. In the distance, someone was walking their dog. It looked peaceful, honest, and I decided, right then and there, I wasn't going to scream or cry or beg for closure. I was going to do what I did best. Listen, watch, collect. Because Darren had no idea who I used to be before I became Lila's husband. And Lila? She'd forgotten I notice everything. They thought I was gone. They were wrong. They say if you want to know who someone really is, watch what they do when they think no one's watching. But honestly, you can skip the sleuthing if you've got access to the group chat. Enter Mia. Mia was Lila's best friend, bridesmaid at our wedding, frequent brunch partner, and the kind of woman who overshared like it was a competitive sport. The secret to Mia was simple. She loved the drama, as long as she wasn't the villain. All I had to do was bait the hook. I texted her, casual as a falling leaf. Hey Mia, I know things are weird right now, but I could use some clarity. You've always been honest with me. Was it really just Darren? The ellipses appeared almost instantly. Then, oh wow, I didn't think you knew. I let her stew for 10 seconds before replying. Knew what? Another pause. Then the floodgates opened. I'm not trying to throw her under the bus, but it's not just Darren. There was that weekend in Austin last fall. I thought they were just old friends. But then she started acting different. Less married. I stared at the screen. Less married. There it was. The phrase I didn't know I'd been waiting for. And then there was that rooftop bar thing in December. She said it was a work party, but she went with someone named Nate. Do you know him? No, Mia. I did not know Nate. I kept it simple. Thanks for telling me. You didn't have to. You deserve better, honestly. I always thought you were too good for her. But you didn't hear it from me. Of course not. I screenshotted everything. By lunch, I had a new contact list. Darren, Nate, Austin, December, and a plan to track the rest. I remembered something Lila once said while watching a true crime doc. I don't get how guys don't see it coming. If you know your wife's cheating, do something. Well, sweetheart, surprise. I am. Step 1 was already in motion. I pulled some favors at work and got temporary access to her work calendar. Nothing invasive, just a shared project management app she always forgot to log out of. Monday, client dinner at 7:30. With who? I found out 30 minutes later, thanks to Mia again, who apparently felt guilty now that the tea was spilled. FYI, she texted, she's meeting Darren at Botino's tonight. I told her to cancel. She won't. Perfect. So I made a dinner reservation too. Same restaurant. Table for one. Just out of sight. Not to cause a scene. Not even to say a word. Just to watch. That night, I put on the navy blazer she always said made me look presidential. Funny, considering she just voted me out of office. I arrived early, took a booth in the corner with a full view of the main dining area. Ordered an old-fashioned and waited. They arrived at 7:37. She was wearing the necklace I gave her for our anniversary. The one she said made her feel safe. Darren put his hand on her back like he had a mortgage on it. She smiled like she was 16 and had never heard of guilt. They laughed. They toasted. And she didn't even glance around like someone who had anything to hide. I didn't confront them. Didn't text. Didn't breathe heavy. I just finished my drink, left a generous tip, and walked out the front door like a man with nothing to prove and everything to plan. Let them marinate in their illusion. The storm hadn't arrived yet, but the clouds were already gathering. Let me tell you something about betrayal. It has a paper trail. Might not be written in ink, but it's there, hiding in the cracks of shared accounts, digital receipts, and calendar reminders. And once you know what you're looking for, you start seeing everything. The night after Botino's, I couldn't sleep. Not out of sadness. Out of strategy. I stared at the motel ceiling like it held the blueprint to revenge. My old life, our joint Netflix account, our shared cloud storage, the Amazon home profile suddenly became my battleground. Because if Lila wanted out, fine. But I wasn't walking away empty-handed while she skated into her next chapter with my memories and my dignity. I pulled out my laptop, logged into our shared Dropbox. She never changed her passwords. That's the thing about people who get bored easily. They also get lazy. And wouldn't you know it? There it was. A folder labeled Travel Docs. Inside, PDFs from her trip to Boulder Canyon. Plane tickets. One itinerary. Two names. Darren's was on it. Full name, no mistakes. She bought both tickets. My credit card. There's something so uniquely surreal about watching your own betrayal unfold in 12-point Helvetica. I kept digging. Uber receipts. A boutique hotel charge from December, the weekend Mia mentioned. The address? A place in Austin called the Solace Inn. A romantic spot known for its rooftop tubs and no questions asked staff. I clicked through the receipt. 2 guests. 1 room. I copied everything into a folder I called Plan B. Then I renamed the folder Tax Documents, because irony makes excellent camouflage. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why not blow it all up right there? Text the receipts. Show up at her office. Air it all out. But I wasn't interested in theatrics. Not yet. I wanted legal leverage. Because in our marriage, Lila was the one with the shine. Always in front of people, always performing. But behind the curtain, I was the one who handled the money, the paperwork, the details. So the next day, I called Sarah. Sarah's a lawyer. She also happens to be my cousin. We hadn't talked much lately. Family stuff tends to get drowned in group texts and holiday guilt. But when I called and said I needed advice, she made time. I didn't give her everything. Just enough. She's been cheating, I said over coffee at a corner cafe. And she's sloppy. Sarah nodded slowly. And you have proof? Screenshots. Emails. Hotel receipts. Enough to make a judge blink. She leaned in, stirring her coffee. Then what do you want exactly? A clean break? Or something more pointed? That right there is why I like Sarah. No moralizing. No flinching. I want to make sure she doesn't walk away with half of everything after spending the last 6 months auditioning replacements. Sarah sipped her drink, then set the cup down with precision. Technically, infidelity can impact the division of assets depending on the state. But you'll need to play this carefully. I'm not trying to drag her, I said. I just want to leave with what I built. She nodded. Then you need 2 things, a timeline and a neutral face. No angry texts. No fights. Just documentation and silence. Funny how silence had become my most lethal weapon. We talked for another hour. Sarah promised to draw up a preliminary asset report. Said she'd start reaching out to financial experts if I wanted to move forward. But she also left me with something else. If you really want her to feel it, she said, standing to leave, don't hit her where she expects it. Don't scream. Don't chase. Just let her find out, too late, that you already left the game. That stuck with me. So that's what I did. I started vanishing. Little things first. I moved my personal savings to a separate account under my name. Canceled the joint credit card she rarely used. Changed the password on the streaming services, not because I cared about Netflix, but because I wanted her to notice something small was off. A breadcrumb. Then I sold the watch she gave me for our 5th anniversary. The one she bought after cheating on me the first time. Yeah, found that out later. Bought a new laptop with the money. No more using shared devices. This one was clean. I still hadn't spoken to her since the night at Botino's. She didn't know I'd been there. Didn't know I was 6 feet away while she clinked glasses with Darren and toasted to a future built on fraud. But the best part? I knew she felt something shifting. Because 2 days later, I got a text. Lila, hey, just wondering how you're doing. Haven't heard from you in a bit. Not I'm sorry. Now we need to talk. Just a fishing line, tossed into silence. I didn't bite. Because I was too busy preparing the final blow. I'd booked an appointment with our mortgage broker. Quietly moved to take my name off the refinance she'd been dragging her feet on. No more shared obligations. No more we. Just her. And when she got that call from the bank, oh, she'd feel it. See, when people betray you, they think they're in control. They think they're 2 steps ahead. But they forget something crucial. You were paying attention the whole time. By the end of that week, I'd set the table. What came next? Well, let's just say, even Darren's biceps won't lift her out of what's coming. There's a moment, right before a magician finishes the trick, where the audience still thinks they've figured it out. That's the sweet spot. That's where I was with Lila. She thought I was hurting in silence. She thought Darren was winning. She thought I was still the man who left the porch light on, waiting. I wasn't. While she slept in the bed I paid for, dreaming of protein shake romance and abs with opinions, I was flipping the entire narrative. The first real shift came on a Thursday. I scheduled a meeting with her boss. Now, this wasn't just petty sabotage. I'm not the type to tank someone's career out of spite. But it turns out when your wife works at a boutique PR agency and you happen to know that her office policy strictly forbids inter-employee relationships without disclosure, that's not pettiness. That's protocol. I didn't show up storming the place with screenshots. I emailed a confidential package to the firm's HR director, copied the partner, her boss, Eleanor, and left it at that. Hotel receipts. Screenshots. One very compelling Instagram story featuring Darren in what I generously call intimate proximity during a work trip. And I didn't send it from my email. I sent it from a clean burner account with no traceable details, just the subject line. Code of conduct violation, client risk. Then I waited. Now, Eleanor and I had met before. Nice woman. Razor sharp. The kind who wouldn't even let a typo in an email slide, let alone an undeclared office affair. 2 days later, Lila came home early. I wasn't there, obviously, but I still had access to the home security feed she forgot I set up 3 years ago. You'd be amazed how much people forget when they think they've reinvented themselves. The camera caught her walking in, heels in one hand, bag slung like a defeated flag. She stood in the living room for a long time, just staring at the floor. Then she poured a glass of wine at 3 p.m. on a weekday. Eleanor doesn't waste time. Meanwhile, I was at Kyle's place. Remember Kyle? Pull-out couch guy? Turns out his guest room got a lot more comfortable once his girlfriend moved in and demanded throw pillows. I stayed there, off the grid, quiet. And I let the silence do the heavy lifting. Because here's what no one tells you about emotional fallout. The absence of noise is louder than any confrontation. And Lila? She thrived on noise. She needed a reaction. Drama was her currency. It made her feel interesting. So when I didn't text, didn't rage, didn't even ask what happened at work, she started to spiral. 3 days after her early exit from the office, she called me. I didn't pick up. Instead, I forwarded the voicemail to a folder called She Cracks First. I don't know what's going on, she said, voice tense, breath shallow. Eleanor pulled me into a meeting. Someone reported me. Darren's under review. I don't know if you're behind this, but if you are, come on. This isn't you. No, Lila. This is me. The version you underestimated. But it was the second voicemail that really made me pause. You're scaring me, she said. I don't know where you are. I don't even know who you are right now. I made a mistake. Darren didn't mean. That was where I stopped listening. Because there it was. Not remorse. Not truth. Just scrambling. She hadn't lost me. She lost control of me. Big difference. The next day, I called a locksmith. Changed the house locks. Legally, I was still on the deed. And she hadn't filed for separation. Yet. Then I emailed her a single document. A revised draft of our prenup. Remember that boring paperwork she never cared about when we signed it 6 years ago? Well, there was a clause. An infidelity clause. A quiet little paragraph I'd insisted on adding just in case, back when we were still the couple who laughed over burnt pancakes and swore we'd never need lawyers. The clause said if either party was proven to have had an extramarital affair, the guilty party forfeited claims to shared property beyond a 30% cap. She'd laughed at it then. Called it paranoid insurance. Well, congratulations, Lila. Your policy expired. I watched the read receipt ping 2 hours later. Then came the call. I picked up this time. Are you serious? She snapped. This is how you respond? Legal threats? No, I said calmly. This is how I respond to lies, Lila. You could have talked to me. You were too busy whispering in Darren's ear. She was silent for a second, like she didn't expect me to say his name. You're not perfect either, she fired back. I never claimed to be. But I wasn't the one playing musical beds behind my spouse's back. This is revenge. No, I said, this is realignment. A shift in gravity. You tipped the scale. I just let it fall. You're blowing up everything. No, you blew it up. I'm just walking away with what's still mine. She went quiet again. I almost hung up. But then she said it, the line that finally revealed everything. I didn't think you'd fight back. Exactly. She didn't cheat because she stopped loving me. She cheated because she assumed I wouldn't leave. Because I made dinner and folded laundry and showed up. Because she mistook quiet for weak. Big mistake. You were right about one thing, I told her. I was asleep at the wheel. But I'm awake now. And I'm driving. Then I hung up. That was the moment everything flipped. Not because I crushed her. Not because I won. This wasn't a competition anymore. It was the realization that for the first time in years, I wasn't living reactively. I wasn't dodging emotional shrapnel or walking on eggshells or hoping she'd see me again. I was me, again. Deliberate. Clear. Calm. The version she never saw coming. You ever watch a domino line fall in slow motion? You don't even have to push all the pieces. Just the right one. That's what this part of the story was, watching Lila's carefully arranged life start to tip. And I didn't even touch it. I just stopped holding it up. After the call, the one where she finally realized I was done pretending, I felt something strange. Not pride. Not anger. Peace. Like waking up in a room where someone finally turned the air conditioning off after months of that faint, annoying hum. You don't realize how loud it was until it's gone. Lila went quiet for a few days after that. No texts. No emails. Just digital tumbleweeds. I could imagine her pacing in her kitchen, holding her phone like a grenade she didn't know how to throw anymore. But I didn't need noise. I had clarity. I met with Sarah again. My cousin/lawyer. She slid a folder across the table, calm as ever. Preliminary report, she said. Asset division under the prenup's infidelity clause. Based on the evidence you gave me, she doesn't have a leg to stand on. I flipped through it slowly. Numbers. Schedules. A list of properties and accounts with my name solely attached. Turns out, all those years of handling the boring stuff paid off. You'll keep the condo, Sarah continued. The retirement account, your brokerage portfolio, and the lake cabin. Her name's not on any of them. The joint savings, she's entitled to a slice. But not half. Maybe 30%. I nodded. That'll sting her. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Is that the goal? No, I said. The goal is fairness. The sting is just a side effect. She smiled. Well, she's about to develop an allergy to consequences. We wrapped up the meeting. I signed a few forms. Initiated the formal separation paperwork. I wasn't dragging her name through the mud. I wasn't looking for drama. Just a clean break, carved with surgical precision. Later that evening, I stopped by the lake cabin. The one she never liked, said it smelled like wet pine and taxidermy. It was quiet there. Still untouched since my last fishing trip with my brother 2 summers ago. I brought a bottle of whiskey, a notebook, and the kind of clarity you only earn after your world's been bulldozed and handed back to you in pieces. I wrote down everything I wanted in the divorce. What I'd give up. What I'd keep. And then, I wrote a letter. To myself. Not the present me. The old one. The guy who folded her laundry while she giggled at texts from someone else. The guy who made reservations she forgot to show up for. Who forgave her 100 times in his head without ever getting an apology out loud. Here's what I told him. She didn't break you. She revealed you. You weren't a doormat. You were a lighthouse. She just preferred storms. Next time, pick someone who builds with you. Not someone who watches you carry everything and calls it balance. I folded that letter and slid it into the back of my wallet. Just in case I ever forgot. Back in town, Lila finally broke her silence. She showed up. Not at Kyle's. At the house. Yeah, the one I still legally had access to. I got the alert from the front camera. She was standing on the porch like a kid who forgot their keys and hoped the parent they disrespected still loved them enough to open the door. She had a tote bag on one shoulder and her phone in her hand like a shield. I didn't go to the door, but I watched the footage later. She stood there for 7 minutes. Knocked once. Then again. Finally sat down on the steps. And cried. That part caught me off guard, not because I wanted to go comfort her. That version of me was long gone. But because it looked unfamiliar. Not performative. Not manipulative. Just hollow. A woman who had finally realized she'd burned the bridge while she was still standing on it. That night, I got an email. Subject line, can we talk? Body. I know I don't deserve kindness, but I'd appreciate 10 minutes. I don't know who I am anymore, and I can't pretend I'm not scared. I stared at it for a long time, not because I didn't know the answer, but because I needed to sit with the weight of not replying. That used to be me, scared, confused, full of sentences that started with, I don't know. She didn't listen then, and I'm not her therapist now. I closed the email, opened a new tab, filed the final form Sarah had sent me, and I slept like I hadn't in months. Because here's the thing they don't tell you about getting hurt. There's a second kind of pain, the one that comes after the heartbreak, when you realize how much of yourself you gave away just to keep the peace. But once you get past that, once you reclaim your dignity like it's something you can own again, the clarity, it's addicting. You know what's worse than betrayal? Accidental honesty. It came on a Tuesday. I was sipping bad motel coffee, answering work emails like nothing in my life was on fire, when a notification popped up from our shared cloud account. She never remembered to log out. Just like she never remembered anniversaries unless I set a calendar reminder. A voice memo had uploaded from her phone. She probably meant to send it to one of her friends. Maybe to Mia. Maybe to Darren. Who knows? But it synced to the cloud instead. And curiosity is a dangerous little drug. I put on headphones. Her voice was shaky, not sad, just spiraling. I thought he'd fight harder. I thought he'd beg. I don't know what's wrong with me. Darren's sweet, sure, but I don't look at him and feel safe. I feel seen. And maybe that's the problem. Elbert made me feel safe. Like no matter how bad I got, he'd stay. And I ruined that. I think I ruined it on purpose. She paused. I don't think I wanted freedom. I just didn't want to feel ordinary. I didn't pause. I didn't rewind it. I just stared at the file for a second, then deleted it. Because the thing about confessions? If they come too late, they're just noise. After a month of silence, she started showing up at mutual places. The cafe I liked. My gym. Even at my office parking lot one morning. Always the same look. Soft sweater, clean face. Like she tried to rewind time to when things were simple and we were good. She didn't speak right away. Just stood there like someone trying to get into a locked car with a dead battery. Finally, she broke. Do you hate me? I tilted my head. Is that what you're hoping for? No. Her voice cracked. I just need you to look at me like I still exist. I didn't say anything. Not because I didn't have words, but because she wasn't mine to answer anymore. She left. I didn't follow. And the part that made her crumble? She knew I meant it this time. 1 week before the court date, I wrote a letter. Not to her. Not to Darren. Not even to myself. To the next her. Whoever she becomes with him. It read, he won't stay who he is now. People never do. She'll try to mold him into what I was. Stable, quiet, calm. But the moment he bores her, she'll reach for chaos again. She's not a villain. Just unhealed. But that doesn't make her less dangerous. I never sent it. I folded it neatly. Slipped it inside the old wedding album I'd boxed up for the lawyers. Just one more artifact for the graveyard. Closure doesn't come from getting the last word. It comes from realizing you don't need one. Cruelty doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, here's your copy of the settlement agreement. She lost the condo, the car she loved, half her savings went to cover shared debts she forgot we had. Darren, he lasted 2 more months. Just long enough for her to realize that lust doesn't pay bills and passion doesn't help when you're locked out of your own Netflix account. She emailed me once more. Subject, can we try again? No body. No apology. Just hope. I didn't respond, but I did send a box to her new address. Inside was the Ferris wheel photo from our first date. On the back, I wrote 6 words in black ink. You traded love for attention. Congrats. No signature. No return address. Just closure, wrapped in a bow.